Spree terrorized Salinas from 2015 to 2018. A crew of gang members calling themselves the Murder Squad killed 11 people and injured 17 others. They hunted down people who they thought were part of a rival gang, but turns out many of the victims killed were not gang members. Back in 2020, at a press conference, Salinas Police Department revealed 7 of the victims killed were innocent people caught in the crossfire.
They were simply everyday residents of our city that happened to be in a public place while the murder squad was on a hunt.
On Wednesday, the U.S. Attorney General's office announced 5 members of the murder squad were sentenced to a combined 161 years in prison, convicted of racketeering conspiracy and conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering. In addition, each member is ordered to serve 5 years of supervised release once they get out of prison. Salinas Mayor Kimberly Craig, who was a city council member during the squad's killing spree, remembers how the horrific violence impacted the community.
As a leader of the community, you want to provide a safe and livable community, and that is just not what we were facing at that time.
Mayor Craig says these convictions are a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot more work to be done.
We've worked really hard to earn the trust of the community. Finding justice today for the victims and their families.
We're learning more tonight about a described murder squad in Salinas. A now unsealed federal indictment shows a group of gang members are behind a series of orchestrated shootings in Salinas from January 2017 to late 2018. A U.S. prosecutor announced today the men were on the hunt for rival gang members, but as you just heard, their victims were largely innocent. Thanks for being here at 11 o'clock. I'm Aaron Groff. Local and federal authorities say this group terrorized the streets of Salinas for about 2 years. The charges were announced today, but the suspects, most of them are already in jail for other accused crimes, but now all of them are in custody. These suspected gang members indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office are Siaki Tavale, Anelu Tavale, Andrew Alvarado, John Magat, Anthony Valdez, Mark Anthony Garcia. All of them between the ages of 23 and 33. And they're all being charged with racketeering, conspiracy, murder, and other crimes. This map shows where each of the 7 shootings took place. They're said to have operated in a caravan and filed every bullet in their weapon. KION's Josh Cristianto is live for us in Salinas tonight. Josh, you spoke with a local murder victims advocate. So what does she say this all means?
That's right, Aaron. For Debbie Aguilar, who's a Salinas resident who actually became a victim's advocate after losing her son and nephew to gun violence years ago, today's news gives her hope that justice will be done.
They're all gunshot. All of these guys here were killed by guns.
Debbie Aguilar lost her son to gun violence almost 18 years ago in Salinas. It was 2002. Her son, Stephen Joseph Aguilar, just turned 18 and was getting snacks at a 7-Eleven on a Friday night. A vehicle with unknown passengers opened fire, killing him. The culprits are still at large. While Aguilar hasn't seen justice yet for her own family, she is thankful justice is here for others.
I know what it's like to feel that you don't know who did this. And wait for that phone call that somebody will finally, the police, somebody will say, you know what? We're not sure yet, but we may have something.
Since her son's murder, Aguilar has become an advocate for families who face the same thing she's faced. Murder victims spanning decades now plastered onto commemorative papers, remembering those lost to violence. Aguilar says many of these listed were not gang affiliated. Authorities say the victims of the murder squad announced Thursday were mistakenly identified as rival gang members. For the families, it could be a day they've been waiting for.
I'm sure what they're feeling is wow, maybe the pain is finally, it's lessening a little bit today.
The victims, John Rodzak, Fidencio Torres Vega, Rutilio Vega, Felix Alonso Francisco, Jose Luis Flores Vargas, Alejandro Ramirez, Gabriel Hernandez Rangel, and Sergio Carcamo may see some justice now. And perhaps that will provide some closure for those they left behind, even if the wounds never fully heal.
My spirit was so unrested before. But I want those families to know, all the families of the community, that lost loved ones to homicide. Let's keep our hope up and keep our faith up. And just knowing that justice doesn't always fail us.
And local authorities say none of this could have been possible without their partnerships with state and federal law enforcement agencies. Reporting live in Salinas, Josh Cristianto, KIO News Channel 5.
Salinas-based criminal street gang have been sentenced to a combined 161 years in prison. They're part of a self-proclaimed murder squad convicted on racketeering and conspiracy to commit murder charges. Those members are accused of killing 11 people during more than a dozen so-called hunts between 2015 and 2018. 17 others were shot but did survive. Those sentenced are all between the ages of 27 and 37.
It was called Operation Red Rum by authorities. Their investigation led to the arrest of Salinas gang members accused of killing the innocent. One gang member now sentenced to 64 to life in prison. That's 23-year-old Neil Aguillon Palmero. He was found guilty back in December for attempted murders of 2 people back in 2017. The random attempted murders were carried out by gangs to initiate new gang members, according to the Monterey County District Attorney's Office. The DA also adds that none of the victims had gang ties.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Had to do an update video on a case, on a story that I've done a couple videos on. That was on the Salinas murder squad, the Nortenos, who, you know, I'm getting mixed reviews. I'm getting not reviews, but comments. Originally, it came out that they were going after rival gang members. Then it came out that they were just basically going off random people, things as small as, were they bald? Were they Hispanic? Were they males? But when I posted the videos, I was getting comments back from people that seemed like they were local, people that lived there, that knew the situation, and said that the victims were not as innocent as I and the media had portrayed in our videos and in our coverage of these stories. So still kind of up in the air. I'll be honest, I'm torn on it. When I have people in the comments that really seem to know the situation, I tend to, okay, maybe they know something I don't. But I'm also reading the facts, and I'm reading some of these court cases, and I'm going, well, not all of them were just in the streets, or not all of them were guilty parties. Some of these people were 100% innocent and in the wrong place at the wrong time. And there is some truth to the fact that these people were just randomly attacked. And there is truth to the fact that they were targeting people for just being maybe Hispanic. You know, I think the best way I'm trying to put it is, I think each side, there was truth to each side. Whether you believed, nope, all of these people were not randomly killed. They all had a part. They all had a hand. They were not innocent. I think there's some truth to that. And I also think there's truth to, man, these were not rival gang members. These were people just living their lives that were 100% targeted by these brutal gang members, these killers. So Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, 5 members of the Salinas-based murder squad sentenced to a combined 161 years in prison for a 2015 to 2018 killing spree. Reading here in San Jose, 5 members of the self-proclaimed murder squad, a crew of Salinas-based Norteno criminal street gang members falling under the Monterey County Regiment Enterprise, affiliated with the Nuestra Familia prison gang. We've all talked about the NF. They are the leaders of the Norteno gang. They run things from behind the walls of prison, which trickle down to the street. It's the same thing as La M or the Mexican Mafia for the Norteno gangs. Everything, the leaders, the top dogs, they are locked up. They are behind prison walls. They are calling the shots. They are making decisions. And it affects everything that goes on outside in the free world and on the streets and in people's day-to-day lives that are involved with these gangs. Whether it's the actual gang members themselves, but it's insidious, man. It's like a cancer. It spreads out. It affects families, neighbors, neighborhoods. And it just is a constant cycle of violence. But anyway, so 161 years in prison, people affiliated with the Norteno street gang, falls under the Monterey County Regiment Enterprise. They are affiliated with the NF, the Nuestra Familia. They were sentenced to a combined 161 years in prison for racketeering, conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering. It's a RICO indictment, guys. It's a federal RICO charge. It's the big boys. When the feds show up, They are going to lock you up for a very, very long time. Announced United States Attorney Ishmael J. Ramsey and Homeland Security Investigations HSI Special Agent in Charge Tatum King. The sentences were handed down by the Honorary Beth Labson Freeman, U.S. District Court Judge. The murder squad conducted more than a dozen, quote, hunts, tracking and shooting dozens of Salinas residents whom they perceived to be members of a rival gang and this is what I was talking about, for reasons as vague as they were Hispanic, bald, or wearing blue. The squad would often use military-style tactics, traveling in a convoy of vehicles with the designated shooter vehicle and the designated security spotter vehicle, all of which were in constant communication via conference call. The security spotter vehicles would patrol the streets, searching for potential targets. Once a target or targets were spotted, the security spotter vehicle would transmit the location so that the shooters in the shooter vehicle could drive up, exit, hop out, and they're going to start unloading. And basically said they were shooting until the magazines were empty, and then they're getting the hell out of there. The security spotter vehicle would fall behind, and at that point, that's the vehicle that's going to get ready to distract or kind of take law enforcement off the heels of the shooters who were in another vehicle. All right? Between 2015 and 2018, 11 people were killed during these hunts, and another 17 people were shot but survived. That's crazy. So that is 28 people in total, and almost half were murdered, that's a very high number. When you see a lot of these drive-by shootings and these attacks, a lot of times people don't die. They're just very wounded. They're scared. They're traumatized. But out of 28 people to kill 11, that's unfortunately, that's a successful shooting spree. Most of the victims, and this is what I'm talking about, guys. But I love the conversation. I love the comments. I love hearing people that are from the area. Guys, please continue to comment. Again, I think both sides of the coin can be true. The media is not always right. The media has biased coverage. Law enforcement, the prosecution, these feds, of course it's biased coverage. And of course we'll never know the full true story. I'm not naive to that at all. I do think there's some truth to what they're saying, but I know there's always a deeper and there's always more layers to it. So it went on to say most of the victims were not actually members of a rival gang. Some of the victims were not an intended target at all, but were nevertheless hit in the crossfire. But that's another part that I absolutely believe. I think when these gang members, these Nortenos, are rolling up, they're jacked up, they're wanting, like I talked about in my last video, a lot of these were being done for initiation purposes or to test someone who's up and coming, to see how down they are, to see how with it they are, and to see if they're willing to go all the way. And if you're already a Norteno and your plan is to get to the NF or the Nuestra Familia, which with a lot of Hispanic gangs, the goal is to get to prison, well, here's your opportunity. Because if you're out here in the streets and you're scared to do something, if you're scared to go shoot and get down, then you're probably not going to be cut out for being in the NF or being in one of these max security prisons where things are like, it's basically Gladiator, the movie Gladiator, if you've ever seen that. But if you haven't, go check that out. So anyway, several of the murders began when the members of the murder squad were gathered at a house to remember a recently deceased friend or loved one. They then decided to go hunting as a way to commemorate the descendants' memory and or lift their spirits. Each additional body increased a defendant's status and prestige within the enterprise. That's what I was just talking about. The murder squad killed for sport, terrorizing the city of Salinas and forever altering the lives of so many innocent members of our community, said U.S. Attorney Ramsey. Quote, as described in the court filings, their conduct is reprehensible. Thanks to the strong collaboration between federal and state law enforcement over the course of many years, these men will rightfully spend the next few decades of their lives in prison. So going back just a ways, all 5 defendants pleaded guilty on May 7, 2024 to 1 count of racketeering, conspiracy, and violation, and 1 count of conspiracy to murder in aid of racketeering. Siake Tavale, 27, also known as Shocky or Gunner. I covered him in my first video about these guys a couple months back. He was sentenced to 41 years in prison. John Mago, 37 years old, also known as Romeo, was sentenced to 37 years in prison. Anthony Valdez, 27 years old, also known as Hitter, or Tony Baranda, was sentenced to 31 years in prison. Anule Tavale, related to Siake. And they said Siake Tavale, I covered that in my first video about these guys. They said he was kind of the leader of this. Anale Tavale, 28, also known as Angel, he was given 27 years in prison. And Mark Anthony Garcia, 33 years old, also known as Tony from Santa Rita, was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Each of the defendants also was ordered to serve a 5-year term of supervised release. And then went on to say that the defendants were immediately remanded into custody. So, I really felt like I wanted to do this video. I saw it, I know maybe a couple days late. I, hopped on YouTube and I'd seen that some other channels were making these videos, but it's like, man, I did 2 videos on these guys. I felt like at least I kind of wanted to put a final chapter on it, kind of put a bow on this story. Really sad, really crazy, especially when you see those final numbers. Because initially this story is really wide-ranging and it's over years, so I'm not going to lie, it was kind of hard to get certain information. I had to do it I did 2 videos because in the second video, I'm talking about different people. I tie it kind of in, but I'm talking about all different people in the second video. So it's kind of nice to read this because it really sort of brings everything together. You see the long prison terms, and again, like we've talked about in the feds do not play. They make their good time a lot more difficult to get. It's not more difficult to get, you just don't get as much of it. So you end up doing a lot more of your sentence with the feds as opposed to state. But anyway, there you guys have it. The Salinas-based murder squad, 5 of them, sentenced to 161 years in total. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, we'll probably never see something like this again, but I don't agree with that. I think 100% stuff like this goes on every day. And this is why I made this channel, because I love bringing this information to you guys. It's super interesting to me. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. And I hope it's interesting to you guys. So anyway, I appreciate it. Much love. Until next time. Peace.